Okay, so sit yourself on your left. Just come into a cross-leg position, or you can do a variation if you need to, Juliet, if that doesn't feel good for your knee right now. Just find a comfortable position. Just have a little wriggle about. So if you're sitting on kind of solid blocks, it's often good to kind of just roll out and physically move the buttock flesh out to the side. So that's a good way of kind of just leveling out those seat bones. Grip around your knees and lift and open the chest. Gather your shoulder blades together. Soften your jaw and your tongue. Just look down at the floor, about 6 feet away from where you're sitting. Keeping the eyes still in the sockets. Softening the eye muscles. Listening to the sound of the breath. Filling the breath from the bottom of the lungs to the top of the lungs. And then bring your hands into Namaste, lengthening from the armpits into the elbows. Elbows into the heels of the hands into the fingertips. Just focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Just listening to the sound of the breath, feeling the breath expand the lungs, stretching into the lining of the lungs. So try and make the breath travel all the way from the windpipe, the trachea, into the tips of the bronchial tubes. Expanding in 3 dimensions, upwards and outwards. Softening the muscles around the shoulder blades, so the trapezius muscle, just softening that muscle off so that you can expand the lungs to their full capacity without resistance. Inhalation without resistance allows you to ingest more of the oxygen of each breath, drawing more prana from each breath. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone. Hold on to that feeling as you release your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, and then just raise your head and open your eyes. Around the fronts of the knees, lift and open your chest, driving the front chest upwards, drawing your shoulder blades, your shoulders down away from your ears. And then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, the shoulders across. Breathe in nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. using the out breath to intensify the turn. Come back to the center, grip around your knees, lift and open the chest, drive the spine upwards. Good deep inhalation, and then turn to the right with the following exhalation. Drawing the abdominal flesh across, so drawing the belly button to point at that left knee and beyond it. Turning the ribs and the shoulders, keeping the neck just entirely soft. And then come back to the center and just come off your lift. So Juliet, rather than sitting back in virasana, which is probably not going to be very comfortable for your knee, just go into supta Baddangulyasana and stretch your arms out over your head. So supta Baddangulyasana. So just laying on your back, feet together, knees apart. You can support your thighs if you need to. Otherwise, lift and open the chest, sitting really firmly down on your heels, and then lengthen your hands behind you so that your shoulders are underneath your hands are underneath your shoulders. Lift from the wrists up into the armpits. Now, if you've got a problematic back, then just stay at this stage. Just lift in the front chest, lift in the wrists up into the armpits. If you want to go a little further, there's that kind of parsvottansana action where you turn the tailbone in, lift the tailbone up away from the floor, and then lengthen the chin away from your chest, unless there's a problem with your neck. Breathe nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. Lifting the seat bones higher, lifting the wrists up into the armpits. And then come down onto your seat bone, but come onto the tips of the fingers, and then just come back to the center and come forwards into Adho Mukha virasana. So the palms of the hands press down into the floor, keeping the seat bones in contact with the floor. Bring your head down. Listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just listening to the sound of the breath, lengthening the sacrum spine down towards your heels, lengthening the arms away. Juliet, for you in supta Baddangulyasana, just keep lengthening your arms away from the head along the floor, pressing the heels together, lengthening the inner legs all the way towards the inner knee, rotating the inner knee around to the outer knee. Breathe in nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. And then come up onto your knees, turn your toes under and up into dog down. So Juliet, you can come up into dog down if you want to. Or you can stay in supta Baddangulyasana, whatever feels right for you. Push the heels of the hands deeply into the floor. Spread the palms of the hands. Press the palms of the hands into the floor like it's glued to the floor. Spread your fingers. Tighten up your kneecaps. Draw the kneecaps into the sockets. Lift the fronts of the thigh muscles up. First into the bone, but then lifting the bone up towards the hips, the hip socket. Turning your thighs, your fronts of your thighs inwards, rotating the shins inwards, breathing nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. Listening to the sound of the breath. Soften the jaw and in the tongue, activating and feeling and activating. Feel that you're working evenly on both legs. Both legs are lifting away from the floor, even lifting from the heels up into the seat bones. And there's even distribution of energetic exertion between the legs and the arms and the spine. So feel the pose from the skin to the flesh, to the muscle, to the bone. Feel the pose, and through feeling the pose, we see the pose. If I'm holding you too long, then just rest down. If you can stay and maintain, then do. Feel the pose so that you can see the pose, but you see the pose through the feeling of the pose. So we feel the pose, we see the pose, we breathe the pose. We draw our thought processes into this present moment within the pose, immersing the thoughts into the pose. And then we become the pose. So we're doing, feeling, seeing, breathing, thinking, and being the pose. Okay, step forward, come up into a standing position and bring your feet as wide apart as your mat, turning your toes in. So if you're not going all the way forwards, you can just put your hands onto the top of a work surface or the top of a table, so you come just halfway like this. Otherwise, raise your arms up, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then hang down in Uttanasana. So say hang down, and that's the upper body just releases down towards the floor, but we've got to really determinedly work the legs so the kneecaps draw through to the back of the knee. So we really lift the kneecap and press it through to the back of the knee. We lift the fronts of the thighs up into the bone initially, and then upwards towards the hip, turning the thighs inwards, hitting your shins back so that your weight goes into your heels. And then when the heels are heavy, lift the seat bones a little more. So we're doing, feeling, seeing, breathing, thinking, and being. So we use the breath and the feeling of the pose to immerse ourselves in this present moment. So whichever version of the pose that you're doing for your body, do it with the awareness, that sense that you start with the feeling. So we do the pose and we develop the ability to see the pose through the feeling of the pose. Just release your hands down towards the floor. Bring the hands into the hips, bend your knees to come up if you need to, and then come up into a standing position. So just come into Tadasana with the inner edge of your feet together, with your kneecaps tightened, hitting the thighs back so that your weight goes back into your heels. Lift and open the chest, tuck the tailbone inwards. Breathe nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. Stretch your arms forwards. Draw your consciousness into each individual finger, into the palm of the hand, into the skin of the back of the hand, into the skin of the fingers. Interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out. Don't worry about cracks and pops, that's good. And then raise your arms over your head. Breathing into the pose, squeezing the outer elbows inwards towards each other, so you really lock the elbows. Just listen to the sound of the breath as the lungs expand and deflate. Spread your toes just to bring additional awareness and activity into the legs. And then release your arms, swap the interlock of the fingers, so you do the unnatural interlock, and then turn the palms out, and then again raise your arms up. So just be in the pose by feeling the pose and seeing the pose through the feeling of the pose. So one way of feeling and seeing is through the ears. Now that sounds a bit ridiculous, but we often just listen with the middle of our ear, with our center ear field. Just bring your arms back down. But we're capable of developing our hearing behind us to the hind ear hearing. So just in Tadasana, spend a moment to draw your consciousness to the hind ear hearing. And at the same time, the cognitive brain becomes activated. Maintaining the hind ear hearing, draw your consciousness to the fore ear hearing, to the hearing in front of you. Maintaining the hind ear hearing. And then the lower ear hearing, hearing below the ears. So broadening the expanse of your hearing. Breathe nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose. Spread the toes of the left foot. We're going to go into vriksana, but Juliet, that isn't going to be any good for you. So you can do Baddangulyasana with just one leg. Let me just show you. So one leg just comes up. You can put the belt around the leg and then lift the chest, and then do the same with the other leg, rather than you don't want to push into your knee. Breathe nice and softly. Spread the toes of your left leg. If you can, lift up your shorts a little just to kind of expose the skin. Then and then bring the foot as high up into the thigh as you can. Use anything that you need, like a post or the wall behind you, just to help you to find your balance. So lift and open the chest. Keep the arms down to start off with. So whichever pose you were doing, before you go further into the pose, just re-establish the hind ear hearing, the fore ear hearing, and the lower ear hearing. And then raise your arms. So in Baddangulyasana, Juliet, you can let go of the belt and raise your arms up towards the ceiling. If that feels okay to stand on the leg. Whichever you do, just work with the hind ear, fore ear, and lower ear hearing, so that we immerse ourselves pratyaharically into the moment, into the physical body, into the breath, by engaging the mind. Release your arms, release the leg. Maybe when you've engaged the hearing in this way, maybe your balance is different. Maybe your balance is a little more secure. Just be back in Tadasana. If you can, just pull your shorts up a little, just because skin on skin is more effective than on material. Let's come back to Tadasana, just observing a broader spectrum of hearing, especially in the lower ear hearing. Bring the foot up into the thigh, straightening that standing leg. Keep the arms down, lifting the chest to start off with. Just re-establishing that broadened, heightened awareness of the hearing. Stretch the arms forwards and raise your arms over your head. So the arms are in Urdhva Hastasana. So the arms are parallel, palms facing each other, arms are straight. Spend time listening with your ears. Through listening with your ears, you start to feel the pose more effectively, more deeply. So listen all the way down to the toes. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, and samadhi. Release your arms, release your leg, and then come back into Tadasana. So be in Tadasana, lifting and opening the chest. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step the feet apart. And then bring your hands onto your hips. Turn your left toes in steeply, the right leg and foot all the way out. And then so we're going to swing the hips to face this front leg for parsvottansana. It often helps to lift that back heel and turn it out so that you can really turn the front of the thigh inwards so that the hips become level. Lift and open the chest and then come forwards, keeping the front chest really lifting, driving from the hips into the chin, and then reach down to find the floor. If you can't find the floor, or you have to round your back or bend your knees to find the floor, then put blocks underneath your hands. But otherwise, just come all the way down to the floor and then go from here with a kind of a tortoise shell back into a distinct lift of this front chest, driving the front chest away from the hips. Breathe nice and softly in through your nose and out through your nose. So just observing the hearing of the pose. So we do the pose and we feel the pose through feeling the pose, we see the body and the pose in 3 dimensions. Even though our eyes can't see the pose, we can feel the pose. So we feel, we see, breathe into the pose, breathing deep, indulgent inhalations to bring energy into the pose. We draw our thoughts into the pose. We become, find this pleasant state of being within the pose. Okay. Bend your front leg, step forwards with the back leg, and then come back up into the standing position, and then come back into Tadasana. So if you needed blocks on the other side, then have blocks for this side. Breathe nice and softly in through the nose, and out through the nose. Being conscious of the fore ear and the hind ear hearing and the lower ear hearing. Feel the skin from the face to the feet. Observe, or maybe both sides of the body feel different because we've stretched one side and not the other. So breathe in nice and softly in through the nose and out through the nose, soft in the jaw. Your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump the feet apart. And this time we turn the right toes in as steeply as we can. Rotate the left foot all the way out, picking up the heel again and turning that heel out so you can rotate the front of the thigh of the back leg inwards so the hips become level. Feel that the legs are evenly reaching out from the hips, hips into the feet, feet up into the hips, hips into the chest, and then come forwards and find the floor. Lengthening the front chest forwards, turning the thigh, especially that back leg inwards. Do it the same with the front leg, but more significantly with the back leg. Just be in the pose and activate the ears, activate your hearing, activate your breathing. Feel your way through the pose and make alterations and corrections. Feel that the calves are engaged, the thighs are engaged, the fronts and the backs of the thighs, the spine is engaged, the arms are engaged, the head is engaged, the breath is engaged. Okay, step the feet back foot forwards, come up into a standing position, and then come back up into Tadasana. Just observe your Tadasana. Just listen to the sounds of the muscular skeletal body. I'm not really talking about sound as in vibration of the air, which is what our eardrum interprets to tell our brain that we're hearing something. I'm talking about the feeling. So just observe how the body feels after poses, after vriksana or the variations, after parsvottansana. Again, reach the arms up, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. spend some time within the pose to observe, does this Baddangulyasana feel significantly different to the previous? Where is there difference within the body? Breathe softly in through the nose and out through the nose. Turning the thighs inwards, tucking the tailbone inwards, drawing the abdomen towards the spine. Release your arms, interlock the fingers the opposite way, turn the palms all the way out again, and then raise your arms up. So just be engaged in the feeling of the pose. We're just doing simple poses. Simple poses are complex if we give it the due observation it requires. Release your arms down, and then just come down onto all fours and then up into dog down, just back up into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So within your dog down, observe if there is any difference in feeling. Breathe deeply and fully. Keeping the fore ear and the hind ear hearing and the lower ear hearing. Seeing the body in 3 dimensions, even the parts of the body that your eyes can't see. We feel those parts in 3 dimensions. So pratyahara is the withdrawing of the senses, but that comes after pranayama, which is learning to use the breath energy. So yama and niyama are ethical principles and the ways in which to kind of incorporate those into your practice and into your life. Asana is the pose, the physical pose. Pranayama is the art of breathing. Pratyahara is the withdrawing of the senses, drawing your senses within the pose. After withdrawing the senses comes concentration, learning to concentrate, then meditation, and then samadhi, the state of blissful being. Maybe that takes a little while to find, like a lifetime perhaps. Come down back onto your knees and then sit back on your heels, or just vary that pose. If you can't sit back on your heels, so sit with your legs outstretched or sit on a chair. So lift and open your chest, or sit on a chair if you're not sitting back in virasana, and again stretch your arms out, drawing your attention and consciousness into each individual finger. And although just as if there is a force field holding the hands kind of in synchronicity together, I want you to gently, like you're holding onto an imaginary box, raise that box up to the sky as though you're kind of offering a gift. Raising the box, keeping the hands communicating, even when you can't see them anymore. Breathing nice and softly, squeezing that box of air. So the hands are apart in urdhva this time. Squeezing that box of air, listening to the sound of the breath. And then just as gently as you raise that gift up to the sky, gently and calmly bring it back down. Just keeping space between the hands even until the arms are outstretched. One more time, as you raise your arms up, holding on to that imaginary box, feel that the front chest lifts with the arms. Keeping the arms communicating, keeping the palms communicating. And then just keeping your arms and your palms communicating. Bring the arms back down. And then rest your hands just on the tops of the thighs. Just let your arms relax for a moment. Just lift and open your chest. And then we're going to come forwards into Adho Mukha Virasana. So if you're sitting on a chair, you can still come forwards, but doing it as if you're doing like a kind of forward bend along the chair. But Juliet, maybe be careful with your back. So you're just going to come forwards like this, keeping your head lifted. Don't bring your head down, but just feel that for yourself. Just observe whether that feels okay for your back. So everyone else come forwards in Adho Mukha Virasana and push the hands into the floor. Stretch the arms away. Turn the tailbone down to the heels. And then breathe evenly in through the nose and out through the nose. Whichever version of the pose you are doing, draw your attention into the breath. Draw your cognitive and your conative brain into the pose. So the conative brain is often determined or defined as the front brain. And it is our volition, our desire to extend and to be here. It's the volitive brain that kind of makes us do things. The cognitive brain is the observer, it's the back brain. And that is the brain that we engage when we broaden our hind ear hearing and our lower ear hearing. So the cognitive brain, or the intellectual body, becomes the observer and the learner. But we also feel through combination of conative and cognitive brain, but it's mainly the cognitive brain. So we're here today because of conative action, volitive action, action that made us get out of bed to be here now. So we appreciate that. Then we deepen our consciousness of our being, if you like, by engaging the intellectual brain, the cognitive brain. Okay, release your hands to your knees and then come up into a seated position. And then just sit yourself in cross legs. So if you're not doing cross legs, then you can sit on a chair. Just sit directly on the floor if you can, if you find it difficult to kind of lift the chest, if you're kind of sinking, then maybe sit on a folded blanket or sit on the lift that you sit on at the beginning. Otherwise, just sit in swastikasana or half padmasana. So we're going to come forwards and we're going to just support our head by piling the fists up on top of each other. So you might need a block underneath your head. So as you come forwards lifting the front chest. If you've got a problem back, I'll give you an alternative. So you come forward and lifting, and then so you rest the hands on, or rest the forehead on your hips. So if you're not coming forwards, then you just stay and you lift. And again, you just do Baddangulyasana and raise your arms over your head. Otherwise, you come forwards by lifting the front chest, the abdomen up to the diaphragm, up to the collarbone, up to the chin. So you make the front chest long as you extend forwards, keeping the front chest and the chin driving you forwards. And then create a couple of fists for your hand with your hands. Just pile them up on top of each other and then rest your forehead down onto your fists. So if you can't reach the floor, or if you lose contact between the seat bones and the floor in order to come forwards, then put a block, pile up some blocks if you need to. Just put a block underneath the hands so you raise the floor up. Push the forehead into the fist, push the fist into the forehead. So you're not quite sure which you're doing kind of more than the other. Breathe in nice and softly, keeping the jaw soft, keeping the tongue soft. Even though this pose is quiet, I want you to continue to engage the hind ear and the fore ear and the lower ear hearing. Okay, raise your head and then just come back to the center. Just observe that quietness that comes from bringing yourself out of a forward bend. There's always that distinct quietness that comes as you raise up out of a forward bend. Grip around your knees, lift and open the chest, drive the spine upwards, drawing the shoulders down. Take a good, strong, deep inhalation in through the nose. And with the exhalation, turning from the abdomen, digging the back hand firmly into the floor, turn to the right. Come back to the center, grip around your knees. Take a good deep inhalation in through the nose and then turn all the way around to the left. Digging the back hand into the floor, extending the spine up towards the ceiling. Breathe in nice and softly. Using the out breath to intensify the turn. Come back to the center. So we're gonna, if you've got a bolster, then use your bolster for supta virasana. If you don't have a bolster, then just get your blanket and kind of get it a big kind of long open fold like this, and then fold it down the middle, and then fold it again. So it's not as good as a kind of a full bolster, but it will kind of help. So we're going to do supta virasana. So this, if you've got uncomfortable knees, then what you can do instead is come into supta Baddangulyasana and have a blanket for underneath your head. So you can do that pose instead. Otherwise, the feet sit kind of either side of the bolster, but it's useful to start kind of on all fours. Have your knees touching, so the inner knees are in contact, and then get your thumb right into the back of the knee, and then encourage the calf flesh away from the back of the knee, rolling the calves out to the side. At this stage, you shouldn't be sitting on the bolster, so you just edge the bolster away a little bit more. So press the shins into the floor, lift and open the chest, keeping the chest lifted, and then come down onto your elbows and then bring yourself down. So at first, this pose often feels quite intense in the fronts of the thighs, but you get that really good opening of the front of the hip. Turn the tailbone in and lift the buttocks away from the floor momentarily, drawing the buttock flesh down towards the floor. So you need support in your lumbar for this. So draw the abdomen towards the spine, but also you need to have the bolster in the right place in your back in order to give it some support. So just shuffle the bolster down your back a little if you're not, if your lumbar is kind of pinching. Draw the belly button towards the spine. Lengthen the tailbone away from the lumbar spine. Just have the hands at the sides of the body initially. So breathe in nice and softly. Ideally, your knees stay together. That's quite hard. You can tie your legs together, but try and keep the knees together. Mine, I can feel slipped apart, so I need to just try and bring the knees back together. Breathe in nice and softly, in through the nose and out through the nose. So you don't necessarily need a bolster for this pose, but it does help. Breathe in nice and softly, in through the nose and out through the nose. Okay, and then just push your elbows back into the floor. Lift the chest first. Try not to poke your head forwards as you come up. Come up onto your hands, and then come up, and then come onto all fours, and then just turn your toes under, and just to refresh your legs, come back up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, dog with the head down. So we usually resist bringing heels down to the floor in dog down, at least initially. But after virasana, it feels good to just bring the heels down to refresh the calves, to refresh the shins, to refresh the ankles. Straighten the legs, come into the pose gently. There will be resistance at first. So let the legs gently recover. And then just come down onto your knees and then just sit back on your heels. So just for a couple of moments, we're going to do setubandha. So after supta virasana, setubandha can feel quite strong in your back. So if you feel that your back has had enough practice today, then just come into supta Baddangulyasana. Otherwise, pull your knees in towards your seat bones, lift your seat bones up towards the ceiling, gather your shoulder blades together, bring the block into sacrum spine, tailbone region, and then just Stretch one leg out, stretch the other, just see how that feels. We're not going to stay for very long. Just give yourself a good stretch out along the front of the body. Just feeling that opening of the front hip. It's almost like your hips can breathe, isn't it? So this stretch of the front of the hip is one that's difficult to access. Supta, so setubandha is a good way of opening that up, as is supta virasana. Soften your jaw and your tongue. Okay, and then just walk your feet back to the blocks or to the block, and then lift the seat bones up away from the floor, and then guide yourself back down onto the floor, and then pull your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, top to bottom, just really working to just move your knees away from your chest and towards your chest, just to kind of find different parts of your back to massage out, to just like even out that stretch. And then just come back up into a seated position. Just fold your blanket so that it becomes a little pillow for your head. Just move all of your equipment out of the way if you can, so you can stretch out without feeling like you're kind of stuck. Come down onto your back, bring the blanket into the shoulders so it's supporting the back of your neck. Make sure you're in a really good straight line. Close your eyes and just listen to the sound of your breath. Soften the jaw and soften the tongue. Just let the body become heavy. Unhooking the muscles of the arms and of the legs. Just completely releasing the muscles of the legs and of the arms and the chest, the face. Allowing that feeling of lightness just emerge in the skin. Draw the breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Evenly distribute that feeling of lightness through to the tips of the toes, the tips of the fingers, the top of the head. When you're ready, just gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, bringing yourself back into the physical pose of Shavasana. Pull your knees in towards your chest. Just give yourself a grounding, gentle massage by rocking from side to side. And then gently roll over onto your right. Straighten out the top leg, come back up into cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through your nose, down into the abdomen. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions, the forward bends, the twists, the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. Send some of that positive energy out into the world. Then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. As you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you've released some of your energy, feeling that you've got lots of positive energy to bring into your day. So thank you very much.